Welcome to BARI Banter, where we talk everything bariatric surgery with the people that know it best, the patients. I'm Shannon, and I'm here with my co-hostess with the mostest,
Lita. So sit back, relax, and remember, sip, sip, sip.
You know when you take like a little bit of time off something and then you like just forget
How to function? Yeah.
So we had a little bit of a break from BARI Banter. We took a couple of weeks off, and I just feel like it's our first podcast again.
Yeah, I feel like we don't know what we're doing anymore.
I know, and everything's happened. I was literally like in the shower before, and I was thinking, wow, there's so much to talk about because we had a break.
We've only had technically 2 weeks off recording, 1 week off putting it out there.
Time flies. But I have missed it. I've missed the BARI Banter, sitting down each week and talking to a new guest and getting to learn about them. But it was nice to have a little bit of a break. Went off to Fraser Island.
That was beautiful.
Explored up there. And yeah, we got finally this weekend I got Race the Roo again.
Yeah, and I've signed up as well, which wasn't meant to happen, but now I'm doing it as well. So somebody who hasn't ran in a very long time decided to run away from a fake kangaroo.
That's how we roll.
Fun.
But yeah, no, it was good to get back to it because, you know, we took 2 weeks, kind of just chilled. It was,
Caught up on life, really. Like, I had a few scans done for our fertility sort of thing, which I'll update everybody on in the coming days, and just sort of took a breath, really. Like,
it's funny because, like, I thought about this today. I was like, it's been 52 episodes, a whole year, but it didn't feel like it was an effort.
No.
Which is like weird considering how much work we put into this, like with like all the editing but like I really do enjoy it. And that's something I said in the live the other week was just if you go into this with any other like wanting to get anything out of it apart from the enjoyment side of things, you won't stick with it because like I really do enjoy like even when you with our guest today, he sat down was like, this is our guest, da 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 da. I said, oh, this is gonna be great. Like, you know, because it's like there's so many things that everyone's individual, so
everybody has a different story.
So and our guest today, which we would introduce in a second, I feel like it's just very open and honest, and it's refreshing to a degree because I kind of like I love that because it's just like nothing's on limits. Just have a chat, get to know that person to a different level. Yeah.
Well, without further ado, I guess I should introduce said person.
All right, let me see if I can.
Let's see if Shan can remember how to get her up on the screen. But she was sleeved back in February 2020 with a start weight of 124 kilos. Her current weight is 65 kilos. She's extremely headstrong and determined, but she's also very real and realistic when it comes to the struggles that we face on everyday today living. I'm sort of stalling a little bit because Shan can't bring it up. She's very headstrong and determined, but she's also very well aware of the struggles that we face every day from living with being overweight for our entire lives or a very long time. Please welcome, we got there in the end, Angie, also known as All About Angie 73 exclamation mark on Instagram.
Exclamation mark.
Yes,
That's a lot more fancy exclamation mark compared to an underscore. So, you know, I give you prompts on that. And yeah, sorry about that. I totally was looking at it thinking like that button makes it exit, and I was like confused. All right, I'm a simple technology person. Don't hold it against me.
We've always said that technology is not our strong point.
Definitely not. I'm like super simple.
I'm quite surprised that we actually made it through our live a couple of weeks ago without too much struggle. So that was pretty good.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but we got there. We got there.
Welcome. Hello, lovely.
Welcome to our podcast. Welcome to your podcast. Welcome to talk about your story. As we just said in the pre-podcast, every answer you say is correct because it's about you. So we're excited to sit down.
Thanks for having me.
No, we're excited to sit down and actually get to know you. In a little bit more depth. So talking about like, let's talk about your weight loss surgery journey. So what was it that sparked it for you? Like what was the turning point for you pre-surgery that made you go, I want to go down this avenue?
Look, it was years in the making. So I'm 48 now and I have been battling with my weight since I was 14 years old. And it was honestly, right up until I was 46, I was adamant that I would actually never have weight loss surgery. It was not on the table. I just didn't want to entertain it. And having said that, though, I battled with the weight, obviously, but also being very depressed about it for the last 30-odd years. So I got to a point where I just had enough. I was sad. I've got 3 daughters and a son, but especially for my daughters, them watching my struggle, I just hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I said, enough is enough. And I went to the doctor and she directed me that way, to be honest. And I was taken aback at first, and not because I wasn't aware of my weight, but just that it hadn't been on the table at all. It was never discussed with anyone. So when she did that, it just started the wheels turning, and within 2 months, I was on the table.
So you obviously, have taken a while to make the decision to have weight loss surgery. Have you felt like weight has been an issue for you your whole life?
Yes.
Yeah. So have you always been obsessed over your weight? Like, how much, like checking the scales and constantly checking your weight and seeing where you're at?
Yes. From the age of, look, I first became aware probably in grade 6, where I noticed I was a bit different to all the other girls. And I was doing little things, just looking like at my legs, for example. And I'd look at the other girls who were all so skinny in my eyes without realising really I was not fat or overweight or anything like that at the time. I was just taller and a little bit stockier, but nothing major. But yes, then people started making comments. So I think that's where it all just started. I grew up with parents who were teenagers when they had me, young, 18,
Younger. Yep.
a lot younger, so kids raising little kids. And I essentially grew up with them, always dieting. And my parents are now in their late 60s, still dieting. So I was exposed to all of it. So if they were on the hot dog diet, I was most certainly on the hot dog diet.
Hot dog diet?
I know, the Heart Foundation. I think we got 2 hot dogs, and that was a highlight in our house.
Wow.
So I did every diet they did. At 16, I was eating, apples for 2 days and vegetables because they were doing it.
So are they still overweight? Like, are they overweight, or was it just part of the diet culture that we're all brought up in these days? Like, are your parents people who have struggled with their weight, and therefore you just tagged along with it as well?
Yes. The thing is, they never got to, or still aren't at the point where they were morbid obese the way I was.
Yeah.
Because it got to the point where I always felt restricted. So I was hiding food, like they would work because my parents were working, and I would just bring all my food to the room and just binge away and then go on another diet. Yeah, big time.
Yeah, I still remember that actually. Like I remember when I got my license for the first time, I went and got Macca's, and I went up to this point and I sat up in the car eating it by myself. And it was that whole freedom of doing things, because I always was brought up with Macca's was a treat, it was a reward, and that was very ingrained into my head. And then I'm like, well, now I have freedom, I can reward myself 24/7. And I still remember that, sitting up on the point and just eating Macca's and almost being semi-ashamed of me hiding away from people, but then also semi-proud that I could do it. Yeah. So it was a weird crossroads, I guess. And now looking back at it, I see that was the relationship side of things, and how I was the reward sensors with certain foods and different
Half
things
the time when I was a teenager, I used to I loved my friends, but a lot of the time I would be super excited about sleepovers, because it was always your girlfriends would come over and bring, food to watch movies and all that sort of thing. So I would buy a bag of Allen's snakes always. And then the other 2 girls would come and bring, a bag of Frodo frogs and maybe a bag of pods or something like that. And the thing that I was most excited about was the fact that I could binge, and it wasn't just all blamed on me. And still to this day, my mum's like, Alita, I know it wasn't Amy that bought all of those lollies. I'd be like, yeah, it was. It was definitely her. Mum would be like, you can't blame your binging on other people. But it was the freedom of being able to, yes, I was only meant to buy 1 bag of lollies, but I'd be like, Amy, if you bring 2, I can't get in trouble, sort of thing. It's just the binging mentality, isn't it?
Is that something for you, Angie, that you've started recognizing certain habits that have formed earlier on in life for yourself, or?
Oh yeah, for sure. In my teenage years, it started that whole thing just started to binge restrict cycle.
Yeah.
And I still struggle with it now. It has not gone away. it's just something that I am trying to live with and come to terms with. But the binging, it was, I don't know about you guys, but even when I went out with my friends, for dinner, in my own brain, I was obsessed by food. We're having dinner. What are we going to get? Whereas everyone else was busy drinking, but I only thought about the food.
Yeah.
I was thinking about what I'm going to eat and should I get dessert? Well, I will get dessert because I can.
The reward senses want it, yeah.
Yeah, it was just always wanting it.
It was.
And always thinking.
Something I said to Make's wife the other day, like I remember, like I said with weight loss surgery, it was not so much the restriction that was the reward. It was not thinking about food 24/7. Like that's one thing that came with weight loss surgery was it took the pressure off of like, I remember waking up in the morning sometimes and thinking about what's for dinner. Like, or when I get home from work, I'm going to drink all this alcohol and I'm going to eat all this food. And that was my reward at the end of the day. And I was talking to her about that because like that is something I look at now. And like, I think to a degree now I look at the end of the day, I get to have a beer or whatever, but it's not to the point of, I'm going to eat.
It's what you're hanging for.
Kilos worth of nachos and stuff like that. It's not something I'm hanging out for. Like I would more look forward to now, race the Roo on the weekend. Like that for me is like looking forward to things like that rather than food, because I do remember a time where it used to be like you'd wake up, have breakfast, and you'd be thinking about lunch or you'd be thinking about dinner. And it was like those certain habits that were formed where it was like that was your reward.
Because I go through phases where like I love food and I love cooking, but then there'll be times like I'm in a slump, not a slump at the moment, but like I'm in this mindset at the moment where I'm not as hungry as what I would be because I'm not training as much as what I used to be. So I was just kind of like, I'm literally eating to survive at the moment. Whereas when I'm training a lot more and when we're out and about a lot more, I was eating to fuel. So it was just kind of like, oh, how can I fuel in a creative and satisfying way? Whereas like literally it's just kind of like, okay, I know I've got to eat dinner, so what can I put on the plate? Like, so I go through phases, and I've always been the kind of person that I love cooking, and my mum hates cooking, and she's like, I literally cook to put food on the plate. And recently I've sort of gotten to that point now because I think I have just settled into, 3.5 years post-op. We're in quite a good routine now, and I'm not training. Like I'm still training. I'm doing like pole dancing, and I'm doing like, that sounds weird to say.
I saw that. That looks awesome.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun.
No longer training for events. She's training for a living.
But like I'm doing different things, and like obviously strength training for me doesn't make me as hungry as what running used to be. So like for these days, I'm just kind of just eating for the sake of eating. I'm not eating. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but it's.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
A year and a half out from surgery, because you're about a year and a half out now. Do you feel like you have as much emphasis put on the weight, like how much you weigh these days?
I do myself. Yes, I'm still. Yeah, it's like I did put in my head that I wanted to be a certain weight, and I had to hit that weight, and I did hit that weight, which was 60 kilos. I was far too thin at that weight.
Because that would mean you would have lost half of your body weight at that stage, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I looked quite skeletal there for a while, and then slowly, I've made the decision to put on a little bit. But I battled with that. Because it's like, no, I said 60, I want to be 60. So every now and again, I have to talk myself out of going back into that restriction of going on a diet, if you will. So I'm always, like, the mental side is all the time. I struggle with that. So I have started seeing a counsellor and all of that to kind of work my way through, because unfortunately I didn't have a great support system with my surgeon. So there was no psychologist involved. The dietitian was absolutely disgraceful.
Wow.
And so I was pretty much left to my own devices.
Yeah. But it is it's one of those, like the weight thing that we were just talking about before, like it is that we spent our whole life hoping to lose weight, like hoping to get to a certain weight. And like what you were just saying before, when you get to a point where you kind of go, oh yeah, I've kind of gone past where I plan to get to. And you start we talked about this with Hayley, where you start trying to say, I could put on a few kilos. Like, people are starting to say, oh, you're looking a bit gaunt, or you're starting to look a bit thing. And and that's what we're saying to Haley, because I found myself reintroducing bad habits with that. Like, I started being like, well, I can have that ice cream, like I can afford to lose, like put on a few kilos. And that's what we're saying to Haley. Like, she sat down with a dietitian and went through a method of how to put that weight back on, where I was very much like led by, I'll just have that extra calorie here or there. And like, I will and I think that's a real, like, for me looking back, I'm kind of like, oh, I probably should have sought professional help, because there's putting weight back on, and there's, or like finding a happy
taking
balance,
bad habits back again,
and then regaining certain habits that you've worked really hard to break down. For you, do you feel like you did it, like when you regained the weight, were you letting those little habits sneak back in, or?
100%.
Yeah.
So what started off as like a once a week little treat where I would have an ice cream or a dessert of some kind slowly became twice a week, 3 times a week, where I got up to 7 days a week, where I was having ice cream every night. And then I thought, well, I've had that, so I'll have a couple of chips. And I just noticed this pattern come back full force, which scares me big time.
It's
because
funny.
the weight can come back.
100% it can. Yeah.
And it only takes like that one habit to that next habit to that next habit. And then before you know it, it's like you're justifying the 5 kilos, you're justifying the 10 kilos. You're getting comfortable with that 10 kilos. It gets to 15 kilos, you're 20 kilos. You know what I mean? We all know how that whole thing plays out. And that for me was when I started getting to a weight that I've never been to. And then I'm starting to make justifications at that weight for the extra 5 kilos. That's where I kind of went, oh, okay, this has happened before.
Yeah.
Didn't end up so well for me. Maybe it's time to start going, where am I at? What am I doing? And actually refocus on like what I'm doing as a whole, rather than just looking at like the scales, because I think the scales don't really tell us an accurate representation of where we're at.
Which that's where I'm at the moment. So I've been having a conversation with another lady within the community, and we're working together because like I remember distinctly having this conversation with you, Shan, like when I was at like 71 kilos and then I got down to 70 kilos and I was like, oh, I don't ever want to be in the 60s. But then I got down to 69 kilos and I got down to 68 kilos. And I sort of like for a good couple of months, I stayed at the sort of like mid to high 60s, which like I was running 5 to 10 Ks every single day. Like I was training for Black Hole. I was training for a half marathon. Like I was in the peak of my fitness. I was eating clean. We were vegan. Like there was just everything was happening for us. We were vegan.
Weird.
We're not anymore.
So we're just a bunch of weirdos over here.
And then like obviously like things have shifted for me in the last couple of months because my goals have changed and I'm no longer looking to try and run a half marathon in under 2 hours and all that sort of thing. But my goals have changed, so therefore I'm not running as much, but I'm still eating and drinking the way that I would be if I was still running 5 to 10 Ks every day. And so like I have started to gain weight again, but I also have to realize that I am probably, because they say you hit your bottom weight and then you're going to gain 5 or so kilos on top of that and be at your happy medium. And I've just got to in my head go, okay, I'm happy with where I'm at the moment. I just have to make sure that I have to stay on top of where I'm at, because I'm teetering on that line of being like the slippery slope of getting out of control again.
I think the whole thing is we don't want to fall into the complacency of like justification of those, like if you turn around and you're like, oh, it's perfectly normal. Everyone gains weight after, hitting their bottom weight. You're going to start almost discourage, like you like kind of going, put it to the back of your mind, like, oh, it's not really happening. Everyone goes through this.
I can't sit here and go, I've had the sleeve, I'm not going to gain weight again because I've had sleeve surgery. Like, no, that's not the truth. I can gain weight and I need to stop myself in my tracks before I start gaining weight properly.
And so, and I've had to learn that myself. I had no one tell me that. So when I went in, I thought this is it. Like, I'm not going to put any weight on. Like, I can't. How can I? And it wasn't until about the 12 months, because like you, running 5, 10Ks daily and strength training, my appetite jumped.
Yeah, it's huge, hey?
Like, my gosh, I can eat, probably I can't eat the way I used to, but if I span it over the day, I can graze all day and fit in easily up to 3,000 calories a day. Easily.
But if you're running 5 or
I
10 Ks a day as well, then that's sustainable.
Well, yes, but it is a bit harder the older we get too, though.
Yeah, it's a whole balance.
Yeah,
thing,
it really is. And I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. Like, I refuse. So like you, Shannon, I just made a decision not long ago. I'm not going to let those habits creep back in because I know it will spiral so easily. And like I said too, you know, I want to be that role model for my kids. Essentially, that's why I did it, because I've got the 3 daughters who watch every move you make. And although I was very open with them, and I sat them down when I did decide to go for the surgery, they look at me through rose-coloured glasses. But you're not big, Mum. You know, you're fine.
Yeah.
And so it was very, very touchy. It was very difficult because I didn't want to put things in their heads when I did make that decision. That was the.
And
Does that make sense?
It's hard too, because your daughters, I'm guessing, would probably be going through like their early teens, which is right when they're probably the most impressionable as well. So you don't want to be forcing on them the whole body image and diet mentality, but you're also sort of living through it, but without living through it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. They've watched every single diet I've been on.
Yeah.
Even though I tried to hide it in a funny way.
You didn't force them to go on the hot dog diet with you?
The hot dog diet.
Never. Well, you know, there were certain words were forbidden in our household. So, you know, the word diet, I tried to explain to them the true meaning of diet, not deprivation, and things like that. But it's a hard one. It really is when you've got an audience.
It's one of those things because, like you were saying before, with the whole habit thing. Like we talked about this at the 1 year episode and stuff like that, where I said, at the end of the day, I can sit here and say a lot of habits that got me to morbidly obese still exist. Like I think if I sat here and I try to deny that and I try to say it doesn't exist, I think that's where the issue lies. Because at the end of the day, it took us 30 years to implement these habits. You know, and you know how hard it is with implementing a running habit. You know, you could be 2 years in, 3 years in, and you still find yourself being like, oh, I don't want to run today, because that habit isn't ingrained well enough. But if you ingrain a habit for 30 years, you can't turn around and be like, well, I have weight loss surgery, you know, I have a food restriction and I'm 2 years out and, you know, that doesn't exist. That's just, I had a bad day. No. That's the biggest thing is like you need to recognize it, not be ashamed of it, but also recognize it. Like really sit there and be like, why am I binge eating? Like, why am I snacking? Why am I justifying my calorie intake and outtake? Like, why am I making these decisions in my mind? Is it related to more than just the taste of that food? Like, is there a relationship with that food? Like, and that's something like I still go through daily where I do something and I look at it and I go, why did I make that decision? Like, or why did I unconsciously eat that thing? You know, and I think that is where growth lies. And I think that's where people will be successful is if you can sit there and not be like, oh, I ate all this chocolate. I feel terrible about it, but I'm going to try and forget about it and just move on with my day. No, you need to sit there and be like, why did I eat all that chocolate? What was it that made me want that chocolate? Why did I subconsciously try and forget about eating it? And is that a bad habit that I need to work on? Like, I think, that is where it is. Because like a lot of people will sit there and like 2 years out, sit there and be like, oh, I'm cured. You know, I have weight loss surgery.
Oh gosh, I wish.
Praise the Lord. Everything is fixed.
Hallelujah.
Like we try and project this perfection image of like, you know, we're cured. But it's like, no, that's not where success lies. Success is understanding, yes, you've lost this weight, you've regained a little bit of your freedom within your life, but you also have a little work to put in still on yourself because we never stop. We should never stop working on ourselves, and we should never stop trying to understand ourselves.
But talking about your process, and you said that you're now seeking, you know, advice from a counselor, and that your dietitian wasn't very helpful. So, like when you were going through the process, like I know for me personally, I had to see a psychologist, I had to see a dietitian, and then I worked with that team for a good 12 to 18 months after my surgery to make sure, like they almost like held my hand for the first 12 months to make sure that I was okay. And then they like let me go off into the life. But like, so what was your process? Like you didn't have any of that?
Nothing. Zero. The only thing I did was the Instagram community, and I, picked and, chose different people that I tended to just watch what they were doing. So that's where I learned about the portion plates and things like that. So I invested in those, and that's basically how I lost the weight initially. I just used those portion plates because of Instagram and lost weight in the first 9 months or so.
Because
that's all I did.
You've been a massive success. Like you're clearly you've lost the weight. You lost half of your body weight within the first 12 months, so to speak. Do you think that your journey would have been different in that first 12 months had you have been working with a psychologist and dietitian, or do you think that you still would have had a very similar result? You just would have maybe set yourself up a little bit better for the future?
Yeah, the latter. Definitely, I think I would have achieved it because once I put something in my head, that's it. You cannot knock it out of me. So I knew I was going to do it, but the mindset work just wasn't there. So as I said earlier, the struggle is real. It's still there because all of a sudden here I am with a new body, and then you start to deal with different things. I'm dealing with loose skin and trying to accept that side of things. And not having that person to talk to, that psychologist, or to talk to me through the process of what to expect, I think things would have been a bit different mentally for me. I'm really struggling with the self-acceptance at this stage. Do you sit there now and how do you view yourself? Are you happy with where you're at?
Yeah, because you said to me this morning actually when I asked you to send me through some photos, and you're like, the body dysmorphia is real. I looked at those photos, and anybody who's watching the podcast now or has seen the thumbnails, I don't understand what you see when you look in the mirror.
Yes, I've got a girlfriend that slaps me around on the daily for that reason.
She is a good girlfriend.
She is a good. There's a few expletives involved in there when she's talking to me. It is real. I look in the mirror and I don't see what you see or what you saw this morning. I hone in on the area, like my legs. I still see these huge legs. And I struggle with that every day.
Yeah.
And I talk to my husband about it because I'm entertaining plastic surgery and he thinks I'm crazy. I've gone to 4 different plastic surgeons in the last 6 months who, of course, what are they going to say? Yes, you've got some loose skin. But at the same token, they're also saying, well, you've actually bounced back really well given the 60 kilo loss. And all of that. So they're not really that encouraging, saying, well, we think you really need to do this. It's only for you if you feel like you want to.
Yeah.
For that little thing. So it's really...
But it's one of those things. I remember a moment when we were climbing a mountain with I think it was Holly Meet Percy in Adelaide. And I remember having a moment where I was probably 2 years out from surgery where someone had kind of... the day before would kind of be like, oh, what's wrong with your nose? And because I have a scar on my nose where I had a bit of a sunspot removed. And I had this moment climbing this mountain where I was getting so focused on perfection. I was getting so focused on, because I'd lost this weight, I assumed everyone would look at me and be like, no criticisms. You're perfect. You're great. You know what I mean? But you've lost the weight. You meet society's norms. I'm not going to criticize you anymore. But then I found myself when I climbed this mountain, someone criticized me on my nose, and I was like, I have a thing on my nose and my tourism's on my eyes, and it's people will always find something to criticize you on.
Yeah, but those people don't know by looking at you that you've lost 60 kilos.
I know, but that's what I mean. If we get so focused on perfection, we'll never be satisfied because no matter where you get to, no matter what you do, no matter how much skin you get removed, no matter how high your boobs may be, someone will still find something, or you will still find something to criticize about yourself. So that was the moment in time where I literally said, I'm just going to focus on just being happy with everything. I have loose skin. I literally sat here before the podcast and I was flapping the little thing underneath my knee and I was like, oh my God, look at the loose skin here. But I don't look at it now as ew, gross. I look at it now as just oh yeah, chill. That's part of me. And Alita accepts that for me. My family and my friends and people that care about me accept that a reflection of my body is a reflection of the journey I've been on. and they're not going to sit there and criticize me. Yes, randoms in the street may have something to say about like my pterygiums or my loose skin or whatever it is, but like I know where I'm at. I'm happy with where I'm at. And I think that's what people need to focus on is happiness with who you are rather than like who you want to be.
But I think it's also ingrained into us though, because like today after work, so I finished work and I went to our local shop because I had to buy a baby shower present for a baby shower that I'm going to on the weekend. And I was walking through wearing my work uniform. So I'm wearing like stockings and a skirt and a blazer, blah, like, you know, I was dressed very appropriately. And people were giving me funny looks. Like I'm wearing a mask and everything. And I was like, do I have a hole in my stockings? Like, what's going, like, why? Like, I honestly felt that everybody was turning around and looking at me, and I don't know why, to the point that some guy was like closing up his coffee shop and he turned around and went, hey, how's your Friday going? And I was like, what?
You're like, stop staring at me.
I was like, what's going on? Like, what's happening?
What's
like,
wrong with me?
What's happening? But like, but I'm guessing it was just, you know, I was walking through the shops and I had a smile on my face, even though you couldn't see it because I was wearing a mask. But like, you know, I was in a good mood, so I think that was reflecting on people. But then my insecurities was kind of like, why are people looking at me? Like, you know, if I had looked at myself in the mirror, unless I had, you know, a booger hanging out of my nose or something that I didn't know about. But like people were just genuinely just like, you know, having a good day. And I was like, why are you looking at me?
They're just smiling at you and you're taking it as like criticism of something about yourself. And
but that like, just goes back to
true though. You go right there. Yeah. It's our insecurity.
100%. Yeah. Cause like I've been overweight since I was 10 years old. Like, as you said, you've been overweight since you were in grade 6. Like it's just automatically ingrained into us to just think that people are looking at us for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And having people, I don't know about you, but I had people tell me from that age that I was big.
Yeah, me too.
I'm from a big Italian family, So my nonna, you know, never seeked to make a comment every single time I saw her. You know, oh, your thighs are getting big or this or that. I even got told that I'd never have a boyfriend because my bottom was so big. You know, things like that. They stay with you.
It's all right. I used to
Big bottoms are on trend.
I used to get told.
They are now, aren't they?
I used to get told, you're not 1 liter, you're more like 40 kilos. Ha ha ha. Like
40 liters.
Oh, wow.
No, 40 kilos because like I'm,
But you're 1 liter.
But they were calling me big. Shut up.
No,
as a child, like I used to come home from primary school bawling my eyes out, and I told my parents I'm legally changing my name the minute that I can.
Wow.
Like it was just
It is. We're all insecure. We're all
kids
insecure.
Are cruel as well.
We're like, and that's one thing.
Very,
like,
very cruel.
We go through this whole Instagram thing, and like I've had people lash out at me before, and like have criticisms of me, and I can sit there and be like, I'm insecure. Like I have insecurities. I'm very secure compared to who I was, but I still have insecurities, and I can see someone who lashes out or someone who attacks someone else, and you just go, it's just insecurities because it's like you're trying to make yourself feel better about who you are and blah, blah. Like, I get that. We all have that. We're all insecure to a degree. I'm sure there's something within every person, no matter how secure they are, that you could be like, knee fat. And they'll be like, I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like, we all are insecure about certain things. And I think we just need to accept that and just be like, you know, we are who we are.
We do.
You know, we're working on ourselves.
Having said that, talking about being insecure, the one thing that I did say to Shan when we were reading your pre-form, that I like to call it, is I was like, I'm actually really excited to get Angie on because, like, you are so self-aware. Like, some of the answers on your form that you filled out, you were like, yes, I lost the weight. The first year was a breeze, so to speak, but the second year has been more challenging because, you know, those old habits have started like coming back. And I was like, this is a woman who actually understands the process and she's well aware of every single move that she's making. Like, and I was kind of like, you know, we spoke this morning about body dysmorphia and all that, but then reading your form, you're very much aware of like from one action comes something else sort of thing. And I was just like, it's really great to see that you're, even without the support of a team leading into surgery and all that, like you have done the homework to make that work for you.
Yes. Well, very true. And yes, I am very self-aware. I know I work on that because, as I said earlier, terrified of, you know, having done something major. It's not easy what we did. You know, I don't think people, you know, as that perception out there, you know, you've taken the easy way out. This is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Hardest thing. And like I said, I did coast for 12 months, but it's like something switched after the 12 months and the real stuff started.
Yeah.
You know, the real mental work started. And I was going to do my damnedest to make sure I didn't make the same mistakes I made before. So a lot of research. And I've started reaching out to people as well. So to a dietitian now and put me on track and all of that.
I think that's a good point to make too, though. Like we always say in racing, like the first kilometre is the free kilometre. And I think almost like the first year of weight loss surgery is your free year because you're pretty much guaranteed.
I think there's a lot of mental pressure.
No, but what I was going to say is you're pretty much guaranteed to lose the weight, but it's what you do in that first year that will then set you up for the success further on, which is what you're finding out now. Like, yes, you've been super successful, but now because your tool, so to speak, has sort of put its brakes on a little bit to be like, okay, well, I'm settled in, I'm a year in. Now you've got to take over. And there was an analogy. So I watched an Anns Moss video at work last year, and one of the psychologists made the perfect analogy for it. And they said that your sleeve essentially is your chauffeur in a car, and it drives you around for the first year. And then sort of towards the sort of 10 to 12 months, the chauffeur gets out of the car and goes into petrol station, and you've got to sort of like, you know, look after it for momentarily, but then they come back in and they're like, oh, I'm taking over again. After that year, they're like, see you later. You know how to drive now. I'm out of here. And you've literally got to take the wheels of the car and you're left to fend for yourself. And I was just like, that is the perfect analogy of it. Metaphor. I'm using the word analogy, whatever. But like, it's like they're there and your tool is guiding you for the first 12 months. It'll pop in and out when you have restriction days and when you don't have restriction days. But pretty much from the 12 months onwards, you're in control of that, and you've got to learn how to drive from there on in. And I was just like, wow, mind blown. That was whoever said it. Fantastic psychologist.
I think something that like I just thought about with Angie before when she was talking, I was kind of like, it's funny because I think something that really fuels success long term with weight loss surgery is that fear of failure. Like I know personally, you know, we didn't make the decision to have weight loss surgery lightly. It wasn't something we just turned around and went, you know what? I feel like having my stomach cut out today. Like you literally go, this is almost the last option. And I think the fear of failure is a very powerful tool in this whole process because like it will make you question certain habits within your own personality. And like I think
absolutely.
I think that's why you see a lot of people 3, 4, 5 years out, they've really gone through that process of trying to understand why they are self-sabotaging, like, or why they are doing things to, you know, that could put them on the path of regain. And I think that is because the whole fear of failure, because you've taken this huge step and like, especially if you're very open and honest about it, the fear of like regaining after that makes you really start hyper-analyzing yourself, really starts making you go, okay, this is like the biggest thing I could do to help me, the biggest tool I can put in place, and I still want to make decisions to put me back where I was. Why?
Yeah.
So like when you were saying that before, I was thinking, wow, it really is like the fear of the fear of failure within this bariatric community is something that really does fuel us to start questioning ourselves, which is a really good thing, but it's also like puts a lot of stress on ourselves. And I think that's why you're saying like a year and a half out, you're starting to go through that. And I think I was very similar. About a year and a half out, I started to really question myself and I started really trying to like break things down to better establish, you know, the core issues.
Yes. I relate to that completely. That's exactly what I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
But, you know, with that, I don't regret it. I should say that with all that. You know, I waited too long. I wish I was your age. I wish I could go back when I was 30 because I was battling then, you know, and there's been a lot of years. It's a lot of years. We're not talking 5, 10. We're talking 35 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time to have those ingrained habits.
It is a very long time. You know, and I totally get what you're saying because, like, I'm the same. Like, if I could have this surgery, like, my biggest regret is not having it sooner. But I think we need to recognize that we had the surgery at a certain point in our life because we were ready for it. Yeah. Like, you know, we were like,
that's right.
It's the same as my little brother. I look at him and he's like, oh, which I'm proud of him because he's like, I don't want to have weight loss surgery because he knows it's not right for him. And it's the same thing. It's like we put in this bariatric community at a certain time where we're ready to maybe analyze these decisions we're making.
Yeah.
But Angie,
and I think there's a there's a stigma, isn't there? Also prior.
Yeah.
You know, now we understand and how great it is. But
and we're slowly breaking down that stigma as well. The more that people are talking about it and the more that people are open about it, it is slowly breaking down. But we talk about this all the time that, you know, we're obviously out and proud about the fact that we've had weight loss surgery, but there'll still be certain people that will be kind of like, you know, when I was at my CrossFit gym and I was like, oh, I've lost 60 kilos. And in front of a whole bunch of people who have been doing CrossFit for like 5 years, I was like, oh yeah, I had weight loss surgery. And you don't know how they're going to react to it, because it's kind of like, regardless of how I've done it, I'm still here at the gym with you guys.
And you still feel that hesitation in yourself when you go to say it, because you're kind of like, what's the response going to be?
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
And I actually said something the other day at my gym, because obviously I'm very open about the fact that we're trying to fall pregnant and blah, blah, blah. And I sort of said to them, I made a statement to the girls that I was there with, and I was like, oh my God, it would have been so much easier for me to just fall pregnant when I was like overweight. And they went, wash your mouth out. They're like, yes, it might have been easier for you to fall pregnant, but for you to actually carry that child and be a mother and blah, blah, like, you know, it might have been so much harder. So they're like, don't ever compare yourself to what you were beforehand, because you are in such a better place now than what you were before. And I was like, oh, wow, these girls actually aren't judging me the fact that I had the surgery. They're actually encouraging me because I'm fitter and healthier. And I was like, I like you people.
Yeah.
So obviously you had goals prior to surgery. What were your goals prior to surgery, and have they changed?
The goal was purely just to lose weight. That was it.
Which you've done.
Yeah.
So you see, I come from my sister, super skinny.
Yeah.
So whenever we were introduced, it was always, oh, this is Anna, that's my sister's name, and Angie, she's the big one.
Oh.
That's how I was introduced by family. That's
totally
constant. So when I did, I thought, I'm going to be thin. I want to be thin. I'm not going to lie. That's what it was all about. Does it make you happier? No. I figured that one out. You know, your problems don't go away and all the rest of it. Physically, though, I was happy, apart from, you know, like I said earlier, focusing on what I don't like. But physically and what I'm able to do now, like run 10 kilometres, I'm proud of myself.
Which is incredible.
Yeah. Amazing.
I love it. And, you know, I walk and I can just do so many things now. So my goals now have changed, Shannon, to say that I want to get stronger.
Yeah.
And you know, I think there's an M word on the cards, isn't there? A good old, quite a long distance run that's on the cards.
I was like, M word. I was out of the loop. I'm like, marriage?
She's already married.
I'm already married. Once is enough.
Apparently, yeah.
You know what? I have entertained a marathon, but I'm a bit like, we are in so many lockdowns here in Melbourne. I just haven't even bothered.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful that I can go out for 2 hours.
That you can move.
Yeah, I really can, because everything else, mentally, it's a real struggle.
It's funny because I had somebody at work the other day, they came in and they're like, oh, mate, my music festivals keep on getting cancelled. And look, I'm a massive music festival fan. Like, I grew up around music festivals. I went to all the festivals every single year. That was my vibe. And I was like, you know what? I can sympathise with you for the fact that your music festivals are cancelled. I said, but my half marathon keeps on getting put off due to COVID. I said, you don't have to train for you don't have to train for a music festival. I have to train for a half marathon. So whilst ever they keep on putting the date off, I have to keep on friggin' running, and it's killing me.
Yeah.
So I can completely sympathise with you when you're like, yeah, I really want to do one, but you know, you could be training for 5 years straight and just never get one done.
But it's so addictive.
And
who would have thought, like at 48, that I'd be addicted to running? Like I've got, you know, hubby saying, you know, maybe you don't need to run as often as you do. And I'm like, oh, it's the satisfaction. I feel great. And I'm no sprinter by all means. I'm not quick at all. But the AirPods on, BARI BANTER going off. I love it.
The runner's high afterwards, where you just like feel that sense of accomplishment because you got out there and did it. Like the amount of days I have that where it's not so much about like running a PB or running what like if I can sometimes in the morning wake up early, go for a run, get home, have a cup of coffee, and I sit there and go, who the am I? Like, how awesome is this? Like, I just woke up in the morning, I went for a run, listened to a podcast, I feel like all the endorphins kicking through my bloodstream, and like, I just feel amazing. And I sometimes I just go like, who am I? Like,
And I think
love
that's a really good thing to point out too, though, because like the other day I came home. Oh, we got back from Fraser, and I was a little bit like bloated and gross because we'd had a weekend away and there was lots of alcohol involved, and I hadn't worked for a couple of days. And we got home, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna sit on the couch and do nothing. And I was like, no, Lita, you made a decision in your head that you were gonna run this afternoon, so go for a run. And it was the hardest and the slowest 3Ks I've ever done. But at the end of it, I sat there and I went, you know what? I still went out there and I still did it. Like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how far I went. It doesn't matter how fast I went. I still made that decision and I committed to it, and I got off the couch and I did it.
I say that all the time. Like, I preach that all the time. True. Like, I've done 30K runs that are less satisfying than a 5K run.
Yeah.
Like, if I can some days when I get home from work and I can't be buggered, like, all I want to do is sit on the couch and just feel sorry for myself. If I can put my headphones on, put my joggers on, and go for a 5K run at whatever pace it is, that gives me such a sense of accomplishment, because that is like something to me that like I have control. Like, I have that self-will enough to be able to do that. Like, because it would be very easy. Like, I say this all the time, like the path of least resistance, the comfort zone is a beautiful place, but nothing grows there. Like, I definitely found myself in a path of like always looking for the easiest way to do things, but being able to test yourself and be like, I'm going to do something that I don't want to do, but that for me is like something that I really take a lot of I feel very proud about,
pride in
when I can do that.
Yeah,
so
I feel the same way. I'm exactly the same way.
Yeah,
never in my wildest dreams.
Yeah, everyone always says like, why do you want to be a runner? But it's like, it is literally like testing yourself, pushing yourself.
We're our own worst critics too, though, because like Wednesday night last week, I went to pole, right, which was my third week of doing pole dancing. And the first 2 weeks, I was quite surprised in myself that I could get up and I could let go of the pole with one hand, and I could lift myself up and all that sort of thing. This week I went and I failed miserably. I've got bruises. I've got blisters on my hands. My hands were bleeding. Like, I failed at it. And I was beating myself up during the class. And the instructor came over to me and she was like, do this. And I did it. And she was like, why are you getting so angry and frustrated on yourself? Like, you're a human. We go through like dips and highs and dips and highs. Like, you're here and you're doing it. You're amazing. And I was just kind of like, oh, wow. Like, it's so true. Like, we're all just so hard on ourselves. We just need to accept the fact that if even showing up, and this is one thing that Haley said a couple of weeks ago, the fact that you show up and you do it is good enough.
Yeah. Well, we're very sometimes like so focused on the perfection that we forget to acknowledge what we're doing. Yeah.
Yes. It's all about being perfect. And that's what I have to work on. And that's why I think it's so important to be real, because I think there's a lot of people out there that it's just all glossy and everything is rosy and all of that. And no, this is real. It's hard work every day, every day. And but trying to also refocus my thoughts and, like you said earlier, Shannon, the great outcomes, that's come out of our surgery and things like that, and focus on that.
Yeah, like you've got endless amount of accomplishments if you really sit there and look at it. Like, I literally did a post tonight on like how everything's easier. Like, if you really sat there and you started being like, oh, I just feel like I'm failing, because the scales may not be moving.
Or my clothes are getting slightly tighter.
You're just clearly not focusing on the right things, because I've been the same weight for like years. Like a year, whatever it is. Like, but I now look at, like, I went out and I worked all day this week. Every day this week I went to work, I dug holes, I did whatever it is. And I literally sat down tonight and said, wow, I used to pay people to do this. Like, I used to pay people to do what I'm doing now. And it would be very easy for me to be like, like push it to the side and be like, oh yeah, but it's just, that's life now. But I want to sit there and I'm like, you know what? Like, life is better. like I can do so much more. My body's able to do more, and there's a certain amount of accomplishment that comes with that. So it's the same as like, you know, my biggest accomplishment to date was sitting down and being able to tie my shoes without holding my breath, you know.
Oh gosh, yes.
And it's always like, if you take every day and you just look for the small little wins, you'll be surprised how much like forward motion comes from that.
Especially when you're as far out as what we are now, because yes, our weight has pretty much stabilized and has been the same for a good year or so.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are living the lifestyle that we're living now, but you've just got to reflect on where you used to be. And like, you know, I never used to paint my toenails because I couldn't bend over for long enough. I think I was the only 28-year-old in the world who had never done their own toenails because I couldn't. Or if I went and got a pedicure, they'd do my toenails for me and it would stay on my toes for months because I couldn't bend down to remove the nail polish from my toenails. Like it was just things like that, or like the fact that I could go into Kmart and buy a pair of sandals and I didn't have to put an extension hole in the strap to go around my ankle. Like just those sorts of things. Or like
little things.
I wanted to invent a shoe strap that had the buckle on the inside of your ankle, because as an overweight person, you can't bend down and see on the opposite side of my leg.
Yes, you should have done that.
I was like, anybody listening, I patent it. No, but like I was like, you know what? Why is it always on the outside when bigger people, we can't see the outside of our ankles? So put the strap and put the buckle on the inside of the ankle so you can actually access it. You know?
Clearly, I've never played with buckles because I'm now like looking at my foot and being like, what?
And now it's a thing of the past for me because I can see my ankles, but like genius, I'm going to create a new shoe line with the buckles on the inside because it's just so hard to get to
Great
it.
idea. Angie, have you had many hurdles? Like, what would you say is been your biggest hurdle since having bariatric surgery?
Look, honestly, I've had a dream run.
Mm-hmm.
So in terms of no complications whatsoever from the actual surgery. Is that what you meant, Shannon? Like,
it could be anything though. Like, what have you found the hardest part of this whole process?
The mental game. The mental game.
Yeah.
But you've touched on that a few times already, so
yeah. So that would be my biggest hurdle. But everything else really has been smooth sailing. My passion for food's come out. So that's not a hurdle, but
as in you appreciate food more, like when you like food more,
and very artistic with food. I must say, I looked at your Instagram.
Yeah, we saw your Instagram. I was like, I need to start like taking some recipes off you.
It makes me hungry.
Thank you. Just enjoying it more. Before it was painful, torturous. It was like, I'm making this for everyone, but I can't eat it. I need to just have the bland broccoli and chicken, you know, whereas now I do tend to have a bit of everything and enjoy and savor it.
You savor the taste.
You said you were Italian before, did you? Or
yes.
So have you found like being in a big Italian family, like has your way of food changed since surgery? Like are you able to celebrate it as much as what you could prior to surgery, like with your family, or do you enjoy it more, or like has anything changed since surgery?
I'll probably enjoy it more. Like I don't sit there with the guilt so much the way I used to sit before. I used to sit there with guilt if I put a piece of bread to my mouth or, you know, a sausage, I don't know, because stuff, whatever. There was always guilt involved. Whereas now I do have that control, you know, despite, you know, some of those habits, but I'm working on that.
Yep.
But it's just enjoying something and not having to say no. I always said no. You know, like I'd be offered a piece, no, I can't have that. So everyone automatically assumed I was always on the diet, which I was really. So no, now it's a case of I tend to appreciate food just on a smaller scale.
And coming from an Italian family, you guys are feeders. You love your food. You love sitting around with the whole family and like food is not just a meal. It's a occasion, really, isn't it?
It is. It's to be celebrated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of the circumstances, we haven't really been able to get together that much for the last 2 years anyway. So it's made it difficult to celebrate all the time. But
we'll eat together over Zoom. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, well, we did do that a few times. We definitely drank over Zoom. So, yeah. But, yeah.
So having the dream run for the last 18 months, is there anything that you would have done differently over the last 18
It's
months?
funny. I read that question that you wrote down. And it was like, would you do anything differently? I want to ask that. I want to ask that a little bit differently because, like, I don't think anyone would sit there and be like, I want to change things up. But I feel like, has there been anything throughout your process that you would have approached differently?
Yeah.
Anything throughout my process? Oh, that's a good question. No, look, I think the only thing I would have done is actually be a bit more proactive in the first 12 months to get more help with it and how to navigate myself, because having got to my goal relatively quickly, it was then just a case of then what, now what?
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I have to maintain. How do I maintain? I've never maintained in my life.
This is new.
This is new. So I think prior, because it happened so quickly, I didn't do enough research on the support side of things. Like, I wasn't aware. It's not like I went to the surgeon. He said, well, you need to see the psychologist and do all that before I do the surgery to make sure you're in the right mental or right headspace, if you will.
Yeah.
So it all happened so quick. So I think that would be my only regret, not researching perhaps other places. Not that my surgeon was bad. He was great.
So it's almost like semi-educating yourself. Like you probably would have put more education into it. Yeah.
Because I think a good thing to point out is that we get our stomach cut out or we get our plumbing
Pipes
redone, whatever, but they don't plug a cable into your head and rewire your brain. It's not like we all of a sudden know what nutrition is. We don't know how to read food labels. We don't know, like, we're always told that carbs are bad, but carbs aren't the enemy. Like, you can eat carbs in moderation. You just need to learn.
Depending on the situation.
You need to learn the process and you need to learn. And I think that's one thing that we need to point out that, like, yes, we have bariatric surgery and it does alter your stomach or your piping and your digestive system, but it doesn't alter your brain. So you need to put that time and work in there to really understand the reason why we gained the weight in the first place, which comes down to the mental side of things, and B, also nutritional, but B, also learning what's going to work for you nutritionally and how you're going to fuel your body and how you're going to, as you said, maintain, because we've never maintained weight before in our life.
And see your relationship. Like, I think that's another thing is, like, see your relationship with food.
With food, yeah.
Like, why you have that relationship.
100%. Yeah. Exactly right. And that's what I wish I had explored. Even though I mean, we could write nutrition books, really. Yeah. We know it all. I know how many calories there is in everything. Yeah. But, just that help, I think, would have been invaluable.
It's funny,
but it's not too late.
Yeah, 100%. That's it.
No, you've got the right mental approach towards this whole process, I think. Like, you've definitely, like, I think if we go into this going, we don't know and we want to know, I think that's a very great position to put yourself in. Like, I think no matter who you are going into bariatric surgery, if you go into it going, I don't know anything and I want to learn.
Yeah. You can't go wrong.
You can't go wrong, because even if you do know a lot and you learn more, you're still going to put yourself in a better position. So just put the walls down, lose the ego, as I always say, lose the ego and just say, I just don't know. I'm going to open myself up to everyone around me and trying to understand me and the whole process better. And you'll find yourself being like, wow, I didn't know that. That's cool. Wow, I'm going to implement that into my own life.
Which is why I really enjoy sitting down and having these conversations every week, because I learn something new every single week from somebody that we have on. So
every week. We can sit down with, no matter whether they're 5 years out or 10 days out. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, the community has been invaluable to me. I mean, it really has. Without it, I'm not sure where I would be, to be honest with you, because I have connected with a lot of people and everyone's been fantastic. I do ask a lot of questions.
Yeah, it's good.
I'm curious about something and always getting great feedback. And I've really,
I think that's a great way too, like asking the questions, because in the day, not everyone's going to know the perfect answer, but like asking the question will give you someone else's answer to be able to like take a little bit from it.
But asking the same question to multiple people will give you like a diverse range on that same question.
And I do that a lot.
Yeah.
Ask a lot of people.
Mass send.
I have,
Yeah.
That's just my nature.
Yeah.
A researcher, always.
You've ran 10 kilometers, a 10-kilometer race at the age of 47.
Yes.
Pretty cool. What's next for you?
Well, hey, the N word, you never know, maybe the marathon
Oh,
when we get out of this. Like I said, it is something that I'm entertained, and it kind of excites me. So you never know.
Look, I'm one person to promise things on this podcast. I like to just put my hand up and say, hey, let's do it together. So when we're eventually out of lockdown and we're allowed to visit each other without any questions asked, Great Ocean Road Marathon.
You've got a lot of promises to live up to. Like, she does it all the time. She's like,
horse riding, skydiving.
We're out of lockdown. We're going to space.
Yeah.
Okay, Alita. Calm
No,
down.
Sounds good to me, Alita.
We really wanted to do the Great Ocean Road half this year.
Yeah, we did actually.
And it
yeah.
like that
I
would
did
be
look
that would
at
be
that.
It would be
beautiful.
gorgeous.
So look, I want to do it
Let's
anyway.
do
I
it.
mean, I don't necessarily want to do the full marathon, but hey, if you want to do it, I'll do it with
baby
you,
steps.
and we'll just.
I'm in. Let's do it.
I mean, it doesn't have to be next year. We can take our bloody time getting there, but you and I,
She's like, so I'm doing a marathon at the Great Ocean Road, but I'm going to do it over a week.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Sounds good to me.
it doesn't need to be the event. We'll just go do it ourselves, and we'll camp, and we'll
we
drink
can-
wine, and we'll,
Oh my God.
Sounds good to me.
It's a fiesta.
I'm in.
It's a fiesta of an event.
So what else
that's
apart
great.
from the marathon?
Yeah.
What else?
Oh, what else? Look, just like educating myself a lot more. I am doing a nutrition course at the moment
Oh wow!
as well. So I would love to be able to help people like myself, and I am entertaining the idea of doing a counselling course
Love it.
as well, my master's,
Yep.
because I think there's a huge gap in our community for that. So I know I've definitely struggled finding someone that can help in my area in terms of having had bariatric surgery, yada yada. So
Great idea.
that's on the cards.
And I think a lot of people
what-
can relate as well if you have lived through it as well. It just gives that extra little bit of
It breaks the walls down.
Yeah.
I literally have this conversation
Yep.
with Amy frequently. So, like, Amy, who I run with all the time, she hasn't had bariatric surgery, but she's
Studying
a
to be a
runner.
dietitian.
She's studying to be a dietitian, and she's someone who I think would be very valuable to bariatric community because she has that approach of just being like super understanding.
Yeah.
But I also say
Yeah.
like with bariatric patients, we've got these walls up. We walk in there with like these like guards up, like, you know what I mean? Like, and if you are a bariatric patient and you walk in, you have a shirt that says I'm a bariatric patient, people are more likely to be like, oh, I feel
walls are
uncomfortable.
down. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're all like we said earlier,
Yeah.
a little bit insecure.
Because let's not face it,
little bit like-
let's face it, we all have a little bit of a resentment for that person that's always been fit,
the person
always
that
been
preaches
healthy.
health and fitness and they're like never struggle with
Who
weight
can
their
eat
whole life.
KFC
Yeah.
3 times a day and not gain
Yeah.
like anything. Like we hate those
Yeah.
people.
We don't hate
do.
those people.
One-
We're just not going to take
No,
Yeah.
we do.
We do. Let's be honest. My daughter is one of them at the moment.
One of my best friends is one of them, and I'm like, I hate you so much.
Oh, so she just shovels it all down, and it's like, where is it?
Where does it go?
going?
Yeah.
Where? Got legs for days.
I gained weight
What?
watching you eat that. Why did you not gain weight?
Yes, exactly right. I just have to look at it, and it's there.
Yeah.
So, I get it.
Oh, well, that's
I get
super
it.
exciting for you. I
Yeah, I
hope that
love
you
it.
that you achieve that, and then we see you, like we can
Watch
refer
this
you
space.
in the future.
Watch
Like
this space. What
Sounds good.
top
would
tip.
be your top tip
Yeah.
for any other person taking this journey?
Journey. Educate.
Education.
No.
That's been a very
Yep,
like key,
knowledge.
a consistent theme throughout your
Yeah.
podcast.
Consistent from beginning, so prior to however long you need it. till
Information
you
is
get your
key.
head around it all.
Yeah.
Information, 100%.
I'm a firm
Yeah.
believer in
Incredible.
that we never stop learning, so it doesn't matter even
Oh,
if you're 10 years
that's it.
post-op, you can
Oh, for
always be
sure.
learning new things. So
You could be
Yeah.
10 years
Yeah.
out, muscle bound, big old beat, and like information, the right information.
big old beast.
Big old beast. The right information will still help you in some way or another.
Yeah.
So, like,
You're
always
constantly
seek information.
changing, constantly
Yeah.
evolving. There's always going to be something you
Again.
can take on board.
comfort zone's a beautiful place,
Yeah.
but nothing grows there. Like, if you're willing to put
Yeah.
yourself outside that comfort zone, look for that improvement. It's always going to be there.
Mm.
Yep.
Exactly right.
Well, Angie,
Exactly
you have been a breath of fresh air. I've really enjoyed sitting down with you, having a chat, and it's just been really nice.
It has been nice.
I've
Missed
It's
it.
been nice and cash. Nice and cash.
Well, that's what we like.
Been good.
Like
We tell it to people all the
We don't
time.
come out here to sit down with people and like tell people how to do their journey. We just want to have a conversation with someone else who's gone through the process, understand you a little bit better, which I think we've done. I feel like I have. I've developed a more of appreciation.
I feel a bit
you
sorry for
definitely-
you too, because this is our first episode back, so we're super like,
It is what it is. Nah, it's
No,
pretty
it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
It's better for me.
Yeah.
It's good.
well, that's what
I was nervous.
that's what we put out to, like, don't be. Or everybody's nervous. It's normal.
I'm still nervous.
But
every day. No,
The point of Bari Banter is to just sit down and have a chat, have some banter. Just, we just want to know
have a
about
conversation.
you and
We want
just
to know about
your
you,
journey.
your
Oh,
journey, because you'd be
No, it's
surprised.
great.
You'd be surprised, like having this conversation. There'll be something within your whole thing that someone will resonate to.
It'll click for
It'll
them.
be someone else will resonate to another part of it, and then someone else will resonate to another part. That's the beauty of it, because like your process is uniquely you, but it will hold little things that will resonate to a lot of people. And that's what it's all
so
about,
true.
because it's like, whether it was you saying, you're 47, you ran, 10Ks. Someone will be like, she's 47, she ran 10Ks. I could do that then. You know what I mean? Like, it's these little things, these little seeds that you can plant in other people's heads that are the real reward out of Bari, like the Bari Banter. So,
And so if somebody wants to reach out to you and have a chat and figure out a little bit more about you, or maybe get some advice or ask you all the questions, how do they get in contact with you?
They can DM me via Insta. Oh, someone's gone.
Nope.
Can you still hear me?
We got
Yeah.
you.
Am I still?
No, we got you.
Yeah,
Keep going.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, they can go on Insta and DM me on All About Angie 73 !
With the exclamation mark, that's it. We'll make sure that we obviously will tag you in the post. We'll pop your name in below the comments and everything. But it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and it's been amazing getting to know you a little bit better. And wish you all the best in the future. And I'll be running a marathon with you shortly.
Yes, we will.
apparently,
Ocean,
and
bring it on.
flying to outer space and trekking across the Sahara Desert, ask Leah to do
Can't
something,
wait.
she'll do it. Anyway, guys, that is another
Love it.
episode of Bari Banter. Well, yes, that is another episode of Bari Banter in the books. We hope you got a little something from that one.
Head on over to Facebook or Instagram and check us out, or go to baribanter.com where you can watch past episodes, give us feedback, and let us know who you want to hear from next.
We love you all, and as always, please stay beautiful.